So I get a good bit of news stories that I come across, and most of them, if they're bad, which most of them are, I'll skim over the title, but for some reason this one stood out to me. I think because it had to do with a young boy in a fit of rage, and those are the things that I believe men in our society need to work on being better at guiding these young men. So this story was about a 15-year-old boy. It says a 15-year-old boy executes his girlfriend's mother and siblings. Then it goes on to say a 15-year-old boy is accused of executing his ex-girlfriend's mother and her two siblings at their West Texas home. The investigation revealed that the suspect entered the home, executed his ex-girlfriend's mother, who was 39 years old, and the teenager then executed his ex-girlfriend's 9-year-old brother and 13-year-old sister before he fled the scene. But it also says that the ex-girlfriend, who is 15, declined to say whether she was at home or not during the time of the shooting, but she was, or she did say, it did say she was not physically harmed. This wasn't a crime of love, passion, whatever you want to call it. This was a crime of uncontrolled rage. It was a crime of undeveloped masculinity and emotional illiteracy, I believe. A 15-year-old boy doesn't wake up one day and decide to slaughter a woman and two children unless something is fundamentally broken inside of him that doesn't absolve him. But for me, it actually explains the trajectory of what brought him here. This event was not strength. This was not heartbreak. This was impotent fury that was looking for some type of outlet. And the part that I believe most people don't want to say out loud is that this looks like a young man with no fundamental or functional role model, a functional masculine role model, right? Any kind of model of masculine restraint within his life. Like no one was there to teach him how to carry his anger without becoming the anger, right? And there was no one there to help him with his framework. And so it turned into that rejection. I'm not sure if she broke up with him or not, but I would assume that's what happened. And that rejection turned into violence, because boys are typically born with aggression. That's not the problem. The aggression is fuel, and it's meant to be shaped into discipline and protection and purpose and in self-control. But when there's no man in a boy's life, or no positive male, no positive masculine role model, all of that, I know you're angry. Now here's what you do with it, right? When that doesn't exist in his life, that aggression begins to rot and it turns inward and then outward. And then finally, or eventually, it becomes lethal. So this boy didn't just lose his girlfriend, but within her, he lost his identity because he built his entire sense of self-worth around this chick, right? That's not but it wasn't that was the actual failure point, I believe. A 15-year-old boy should never pedestalize a girl. No man should ever pedestalize within the confines of a romantic relationship, is what I'm getting to, but should never pedestalize a woman, right? His girlfriend, period. And so when boys make girls his emotional center of gravity, that rejection doesn't feel like disappointment. It feels like complete annihilation. His values collapse. His ego is in distress and it panics. And without that emotional regulation that a positive male role model would give him, that panic becomes rage. And that's why the police believes that, or the police revealed that this event was planned in the first place. He planned to kill her first at school. But when you sit with that for a minute and really think about it, this boy did not want to reconcile with this girl. He wanted control, because control feels like power when you feel powerless. Control typically feels like power whenever you feel powerless. And when that plan changed, his rage didn't just go away. What his rage did was it redirected itself. So he walks from the school to her house. He sees her mother. He sees her brother. He sees her sister. And those people were the ones who fall victim to his rage. There's nothing about that that's masculine. That's not masculinity. That's unfortunately, that's an act of a coward. But yet it's amplified by the access to a gun in the absence of a positive male role model, the absence of guidance. Because real masculinity presents, or a real masculine presence would teach three things early. The first thing is going to be that, yes, son, your emotions are real, but don't lead with them. Don't allow them to drive you. The second thing is rejection is real, but it's also information. It's not humiliation. Okay? The third thing would be that you never punish innocence just because you have internal chaos. going on inside. See, this boy learned none of these things. And because he didn't learn any of these things, instead, he learned that entitlement, or he felt entitled to affection, learned that entitlement to emotional validation, entitlement to retaliation when his fantasies that he created in his head about him and this girl, when all of that collapsed. And now 3 people are dead, a family is destroyed, and this boy's life is effectively over before it ever really began, because he was only 15 years old. See, this is what happens when rage has no discipline, and aggression has no direction, and masculinity has no mentor. The young man or young men are taught that their feelings matter, but responsibility doesn't. I'm gonna say that again. This is what happens when young men are taught that their feelings matter, but responsibility does not. We can argue policy, we can argue gun laws, we can argue courts and sentencing all day long, but I believe the uncomfortable root that remains is that boys without guidance will create their own rules. Boys without guidance will create their own rules, and boys without restraint will confuse rage for power. So this event wasn't inevitable, but it was predictable. It was predictable. And until we begin to teach boys how to become men, I missed a step. Before we begin to teach boys that when they transition into adult malehood, and then how to become men from adult males, not just how to express themselves, but how to govern themselves, stories like this will continue. And the sad truth about it is they'll just begin to get younger and younger.